such a beautiful job that you are doing. Thank you. Well, I like to begin praying. Shall we pray? We have the two Franciscan saints. Who are they?
Anthony of Padua
St. Francis.
and St. Francis of Assisi.
Unbelievable, you know them all.
Their names are on the bottom.
Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Very good. So thank you. Spirituality. What is that word, spirituality? What is that which you think as every time we utter the word spirituality? I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time there was a man that was selling balloons. He had balloons, hundreds of them, different colors, you know. And he liked to approach to a school. There was some school in that town. And every day, at the end of the school time, when the school was about to be closed and all children came out from school to go back home, he would be there, you know, selling these balloons. And in order to draw the attention of the kids, you know, he would release a balloon, white color balloon, and the balloon would go up with the winds, disappear, you know. And then another balloon, maybe green colored balloon, and the balloon would also go. And the red balloon, you know, and all the kids would do, wow, wow, and the balloon flew away, you know. And he was a good psychologist also, had a good touch for kids. So he immediately noticed that there was a black child there in the group, and that he noticed that that black child was looking at the black balloon, you know, and probably he was wondering whether the black colored balloon would be able to fly like the other colors as well, you know. He was looking at it, and this man noticed that, you know. So then he released the black balloon, and the balloon flew away exactly the same as the white and the green and the red, you know. And then the child was relieved. And then this man told the child, he said, "It is not the color, my child, but what is inside that makes the balloon fly. What is inside?" So then the question is obvious, you know. What is inside? That is spirituality. You know that many people in the society today, we do many things, so there is, you know, it's, how does the society differ from other charities, you know? There are many people, many groups that are doing excellent works. Do you know that in Boise, I never knew that until recently, but the Mormons, they have more than 200 organizations that are engaged in welcoming immigrants into the country and helping them to settle into the country. And then they go they go to Syria and to Iraq, and they stay there with all these refugees in refugee camps for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, while waiting for the process of the paperwork to be fulfilled. And they, these Mormons, you know, they stay there with them. They teach them English. They prepare them to enable them to settle in the country here when they come back. And they get well adapted to the climate and to the language and to the customs and to the politics, and, you know. And when these immigrants, you know, they come here, you know, they already know where to go. They know where they are going to be relocated. They know which school they are going to go to. It's amazing, you know. What is it? Of course, most of them, all of them, they become Mormons, of course. Is what is inside. And I want to share, I mean, I said to Jack, you know, when he invited me, he said, I'm going to speak a little bit from my own personal experience, because I have come to know the Vincentian movement and society in Korea, when I went to Korea for the first time, you know, in 1979. And I have accompanied, and I have been accompanied by the Vincentians everywhere that I have been to as a missionary. So, Korea first, Thailand afterwards, China, and Philippines. So I'm going to speak a little bit of the different things that this group has been doing, but I'm going to put emphasis on that which is inside, that has inspired these people to do things, the things they do. And you know, I'm a Franciscan, no? You know, St. Vincent de Paul was educated by the Franciscans, you knew that. So then, obviously, he learned a lot. I thought that Frederick was a member of the Franciscan Third Order, but then Raphael told me that he was not. Although he revived some of the Franciscan poetry of his times. So he worked on that. He died very young, as we learned yesterday. But so the first, to me, you know, the first thing that the spirituality begins in the experience. That we have heard that today. Experience. What do we experience? What do we see? So in the language of spirituality, we call this contemplation. To contemplate, to see. See, judge, and act. See, judge, and act. And these are the three. It's the process. This is the mechanisms of doing something. So see. And the first thing that Francis of Assisi also, when he converted, and also St. Vincent de Paul and Santa Marie Louise of Marillac, they saw misery. But at that time, you know, we are talking about, well, in the case of St. Vincent de Paul, we are talking about, he was born in 1581, and he died in 1660. So he was 79 years old when he died. He and Santa Luisa and Marillac, they geared towards, they saw misery, especially in the cities. So that was a little bit the characteristics. Francis of Assisi moved away from the city. And when he moved away from the city, he found the lepers. The lepers were the cast out. they could not stay in the townships and in the cities. So they were cast apart. So they had to do something for them. And of course, Francis of Assisi did not invent the wheel. It was already invented. There was a group of lay people that were called the Antonians, of Anantos and Anton, and the first monk of the desert, dedicated to him. And they were doing this kind of work with the representative. Francis joined them. But in the time of St. Vincent de Paul, and later and St. Teresa of Marillac, the poverty that they saw that was heartbreaking was the misery of the people living in the big cities, the big cities. Paris, Marseille, Marseille. You know that poverty, when you see poverty in the countryside, when everybody is poor, people who are more poorer, you don't suffer much because you say, well, it's more or less the same, But when you see poverty in the big cities, like for instance I've seen in Manila, the poverty in Manila breaks your heart. Why? Because Manila, the old Manila, the city, you have these houses where people own these houses with swimming pool, with people that cut and grow the grass and take care of the plants, and so beautifully taken care of. Houses with 14, 15 bedrooms, 7, 8 bathrooms, parking garages for 6, 8 cars. And then, you go a little bit outside and you see children with no clothes, wearing short pants, with tiered t-shirts. They come to the back of the jeepneys. Jeepneys are these four-wheel cars, long cars, where they don't have any door, they don't have windows, these cars. It's only open, and then people, they jump in from the back, So these are jeepneys. So these kids, they would come there around this Permia scent, and so on. This is the thing that this kind of misery breaks your heart. So you see, on the one hand, this abundance of things, and in the other hand, you see hundreds, tons of people, and people who live in urban poor areas. They don't have running water, they don't have electricity, they don't have, the trucks that collect rubbish don't enter in those areas. Sometimes those areas are dangerous to go into too. There is high criminality also. Whereas these well-to-do places, they are well set with walls, security guards, if you don't have an ID, you may not enter, and so on, this kind. So it is in the cities that really poverty and misery, more than poverty, breaks your heart. So look into that. Look into that. Contemplation. That is. A very important part of the spirituality is that we need to feel empathy for that. Empathy is an interior, it's faith. Faith and spirituality go hand in hand. Faith has two dimensions. I always say this, because once I asked my mom, what is faith for you? And she sent me almost to the trash. I said, what are you studying? So why did you ask me? Now, Mom, I want to know what is for you. I don't want to know what St. Thomas says about faith, or St. Bonaventure. I want you, my mom, a mother of 13 children. 13. And she told me, well, faith for me is conformity. Then I started understanding a little bit what was the whole attitude. Conformity means, cum in Latin means with, a forma, shape. Shape. So to take the shape of. So that's faith, first of all. I take in my life the shape of Jesus. That is faith. Faith is not an idea. Faith is not mental gymnastics. Faith is not about imagining I don't know what. Faith is not intellectual exercise. Faith is, like Francis of Assisi would say, I want to follow on the footsteps of Jesus. So where did Jesus put his foot? Oh, I went to put it there. Oh, so this is, to follow on the, Francis of Assisi would always use the word follow on the footsteps. So it's to become of the shape of. And that, he saw that in the cross. So in the suffering. So that's why he identified totally with Christ in the human suffering. And the suffering of the human beings is not the same and the same intensity everywhere and every time. That's why we need to look at the signs of the times and to look at experience in the here and now. And the second dimension of faith is sympathy. Sympathy again is two words. Sym means with, pathos means to feel, to suffer, to let myself be influenced, not only influenced by, but set up, as it were, by the person that I feel pathos with. And these are the poor. So this is the faith. So that's why, how does the society differ from other charities? Well, it does differ because we are not an ONG. We are not an NGO. We are not an association which has been created to alleviate the suffering of the people. We have not been created for that in the first place. That is the action. That is the action of the experience that develops the faith. So and that's spirituality, to me is very basic, very fundamental, that's the ABC. The Vincentian spirituality is an act of faith. Faith understood in these two ways that I've said, It's an exercise by which I conform myself with the person, the object of my love, that is Jesus. And I conform myself with the suffering of the people, the poor, and the people who live in misery. We cannot, that's why Pope Francis insists so many times, he said, we are not functionaries of the government. We are not seated in an office and we are not dispensing ID cards or driver's licenses. No. We are involved, my person is involved in what I do. And that what I do is the result of my identification with the person of Christ. That's why what we do is different in many countries, in many places. It's different. But the common denominator of this great fraternity, the Vincentian fraternity, that wants to be the friendship, amicizia, but amicizia is the result of agape. Agape is of donation, kenosis, a basement, because this is another aspect of the spirituality. Is I do this because I want to abase myself. I want to get rid of my ego that makes me selfish, controlling creature. This is very important. So, I said, now, these are the bases, okay? The spiritual basis of spirituality. How did I see this taking place when I was in Korea? When I went to Korea, first thing is parish work. And the first thing that I saw was that there was a St. Vincent de Paul association in the parish. So then I thought, you know what? St. Vincent de Paul said that every parish had to become a home for the poor. He wanted that the charity and the attention to the poor be a work not only for the religious congregations and the nuns that were doing those things as specialized people, but it should be an endeavor carried out by the faith community of a parish. So because of that, St. Vincent de Paul and later on the organization by Frederick Ozanam, that is St. Vincent de Paul is a lay organization. No priest, no bishops, not even the Pope. It's a lay movement. Because that is also what Francis of Assisi wanted. Francis of Assisi did not want to start a congregation. That was an imposition on him by the Pope. Just like for Marie-Louise and Marie-Jacques was also an imposition that the Sisters of Charity, the Daughters of Charity, ended up becoming a religious congregation. It was an imposition. It was a lay movement. Lay has freedom. And that freedom, what we have vows, we pronounce vows, the lay people pronounce the vow of their vocation. Their vocation, like Father Jerry has said to us today. We have, in baptism, we were given the holy chrism by which we were declared to be kings, prophets, and priests. So this is the exercise of this. The exercise of this kingship, this prophecy, this priesthood ministry of the laity, that is what the Vincentian community does. You see, these are the bases, spiritual. This is a spirituality. This is that which sustains your work. And if it doesn't, your work then becomes heavy. Becomes, I do it by obligation, or I do it because I have been doing it, and now I'm not going to finish that. No. Spirituality makes the work and the action to be agile. So you are much agile, more agile than what we, institutions and religious congregations, are. You live with the poor, you live with the people. So going back to Korea, the first thing that I realized in Korea was that there were several stages. The first stage of this St. Vincent de Paul Association, they were in our parish. So they were, because every parish has its own association. So our parish, where was I living? I was living in a port area in Busan, the second largest city in South Korea. And it's because it's a port, you see a lot of people coming from the countryside towards the city. You know that by the year 2030, 85% of the population, the whole population, is going to reside in cities. So this means, people are living the countryside, the livelihood of the countryside, are piling up in the big cities, which many of these big cities do not have infrastructures, enough infrastructure to hold such an amount of people. An example is Manila, very clear. Manila is a city which was designed for 4 million people. Manila today has 15 million people. So can you imagine, sewage system, water, electricity, internet, medical services, schooling, and all these things, it is a mess. It is a mess. And this mess is alleviated, I have to tell you, I have seen that, it's alleviated a little bit by the spirituality of the Vincentian activities. And this is very important. So Korea was also the same thing, you know. Many people coming from the countryside thinking that, of course, in the big cities there will be a little bit more possibilities to have a job. And many times these jobs do not take place. People cannot find jobs. And people are used and abused, you know. So, well, one of the activities that in the first years, I would say, I would distinguish a little bit what I saw in Korea from 1979 to, I would say, 85. And then from 85 on. I left in 1989 to go to Thailand. So first was the direct people, beneficiaries of the work of the St. Vincent de Paul in my parish were the urban poor, Koreans themselves. All kinds of things. So, you know, this St. Vincent de Paul, they were very much active in teaching how to read and write. Many people coming from the countryside didn't have. And many people, especially they were adults, young adults, so the nation did not have a school system to help young adults. So many of the teachers, that is what they did. The teachers at night, they used to say, okay, we are going to teach read and write to all these young adults that come from the countryside to the cities. It was one of the services. Another service was enabling, especially women, enabling them to work, to give them tools so that they could make a job, they could have a job for themselves. For instance, and I saw that the same thing, the same pattern in China. So for instance, a woman would say, okay, I'm a good person, I can do alterations of pants and clothes and so on, you know. Very good. What do you need? Well, I need a trolley, you know, and I need a sewing machine there, and then I will go every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, or 6 or 8 or whatever, and I go to the street, and I pick up a place there, and then there are other people that are selling other things. He said, I do alterations. So then you go to the supermarket, no, to the mall, and then you buy your pants, and you buy your clothes or whatever, and those pants or whatever needed to be shortened or altered or whatever, and this lady would do that. So I remember in China, you know, when every time I bought pants or whatever, I would go to one of these ladies there and say, okay, what do you need? He said, oh, I need an alteration of my pants. Okay, very good. Come here. She would give me a towel. So I wrap myself in a towel. She had there a chair. So I gave her my pants. And then she brought me a cup of tea while she was doing the alteration. So she would take the measures and so on. I sat there and I was looking for the people, how the car passed and people go up and, you know, very busy, you know. And then she finished, and then I pay 1 yuan, 2 yuan, or whatever she asked me, and that was the life she did. So Vincent de Paul enabled these kind of people to have them have that trolley, that little machine. So with a very small capital, they could do that, you know. Sometimes also was medication. You know, in a country where doesn't have insurance, where 80% of the population are not insured, and they don't have any type of insurance, you know, you did that, or those kind of things, you know. So, where this kind of very little activities, painting a house, repairing a house, you know, somebody had made in the outskirts, you know, can you imagine these people coming from the countryside, they live wherever they can, you know, wherever it's available, and then the day they least expect, you know, the government has decided to build a highway that is going to go through that, is going to destroy everything, you know. But nevertheless, while they are there, you know, but they need a little bit a home, something that they can call home, and they need cardboard or whatever, you know. But they do this kind of activities. From 1885 on, do you know that Korea hosted the Olympic Games in 1988? So for the preparation of the Olympic Games in Seoul, this created a huge need of manpower for construction, infrastructures, highways, you know, Olympic stadiums, and a lot of this, which Korea could not provide. So there were countries from outside, like Taiwan, but more than Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam, Myanmar. They would go to Korea with a tourist visa, and then they overstayed their visas, you know. So there was this big problem, you know, that they arrived there. They were immigrants, working immigrants, you know. And of course, the police used to be always a kind of cat and mouse relationship. The police trying to look immigration, you know, for people who would be there illegal with no permits and so on, you know. Do you know that St. Vincent de Paul took upon its responsibility to help these people, to get the remission or the forgiveness of the debts, talking with the government, talking with immigration, sometimes offering paperwork. Sometimes these workers, you know, this is the law of life also. While they were there, they fell in love with a local girl, and then they let the girl pregnant. There is a baby coming. What you have? So you know, that has been something which I have seen later on when I was in Thailand, how the Society of St. Paul, you know, took upon them this great responsibility of welcoming immigrants, welcoming these foreigners, you know, and helping them, whatever it could be done within the context of the law. But, you know, a lot of times the law is also something that can be twisted, you know. The norms can be twisted. And all the lawyers, for instance, lawyers that became members of the Vincentian organization, you know, what today Ralph also was saying, you know, often in times we have people, resources coming to us, people who are retired, you know, people who are retired from their, you know, they stopped making money already, but they put at the service of the organization, of this spirituality, their know-how, their skills and their abilities, you know. So this is what I saw in Korea. When I went to Thailand, in Thailand, the time I arrived in 89, and then in 91 I was made the provincial of the Franciscans there, we were looking at, again, contemplation, the experience. What this country needs the most, in a most urgent way from us, Franciscans. My best friends were a group of St. Vincent de Paul that were members of the parish of the cathedral. So they help us do that discernment, and they help us carry out our decision. we decided to work for the terminally ill AIDS patients. So we habilitated part of our monastery with 16 beds, 16 rooms, and we put these beds, hospital beds. All the rooms were self-contained with their own shower, toilet, and everything, self-contained. And we were receiving only those that would enter into these three categories. Had to be terminal case, had to be poor, and had to be people who had been abandoned by their families. And this was not very difficult to assess, because sometimes the police itself used to bring us sick people who were dying and were sleeping at the bus stations, you know. They're in the benches of the bus stations or bus stops, you know, and the police would bring us and say, could you take care of this, you know? Well, this, the St. Vincent de Paul Association, you know, they created, we worked hand in hand because we saw that this was the most urgent need at that time. In our place, you know, we had about 3-4 people who would die every week. In a year, we had a turnaround of about between 90 to 100 patients. The one who lived the shortest lived 1 day. The one who lived the longest lived 1 month. So, you know, and we worked, we educated. I mean, this place, which still exists in Thailand, became the beacon of welcoming, once again, the miserable, and the misery people, the most abandoned one. And then we, together with the members of St. Vincent de Paul of other parishes in Thailand, we were able to trace the families of the patients in their places of origin, in other parts of Thailand. Is a country that is bigger than the state of Texas, so it's not a little country. You know, it's a big country with very few Catholics. And another very important dimension there was the interreligious dialogue, because there were members of Thai people who were Buddhist that entered into this spirituality, the Vincentian spirituality. And they didn't believe in God, and they had their own religion, Buddhism. But nevertheless, the compassion, because you know the big word in Buddhism is Maha Karuna, which means compassion, mercy. And that was the aspect of which that brought us together. Kwameta Karuna, Maha Karuna, the great compassion. Great compassion. And well, that was so. In Thailand, I would. So in Korea was a little bit. St. Vincent de Paul for the Koreans, and then for the immigrants and refugees. They opened that. In Thailand was the dimension of the AIDS patients with the composite of interreligious dialogue. No? And that was very beautiful. In China, you know that the Catholic Church, there has been a little pre-agreement between the Vatican and the Chinese government now about the appointment of the bishops. You know, well, I'm not going to talk about that because we could be here for the rest of the week. But because of the laity, of the lay dimension of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, the government never checked on the association because they were not clerical. They were not clerical. Laity. So this is, you know, laity means powerlessness. That means we don't have power. The reason why we are persecuted is because we have power. And this is very clear in all these scandals that we are going. Why these scandals have taken place in the first place? For power. Power, control, and the separation between the sacred and the profane. We belong to the sacred, we are the untouchables. The rest of the people are profane, are sinners, are cheap, So these are the things that, because there is this powerlessness, there is no power that the Chinese government has never gone after. But because of that, that has made the association very agile. And they could move everywhere very easily. And they have taken over the activities that the Chinese government and the social system never took care of, which are basically AIDS patients, lepers. And the Chinese government dumped them in the same place, because for the Chinese government, AIDS and leprosy is the same. It's not the same, obviously, but it says they want to get these people away from the main system. So, to the mountains. So there, it is there where the St. Vincent de Paul and the Franciscans that also sometimes are under the law, and the nuns and so on, they go there. And they are not persecuted by the government because they are doing a job that the government doesn't want to do. So, you see there, spirituality. What is that which makes you fly? What is inside? The first question that we have to ask ourselves. And then, experience. What do we have? What do we experience? And we all experience different things in different parts of the world. The needs are different. Then we have to give a faith answer to that. In the process of me doing something for those people, I'm taking the shape, the form of Christ, and I'm having the compassion of Christ. That is. So, hallelujah. Questions? Yes.
So in China with leprosy, that's Hansen's disease. We have a cure for that. Why are they not giving the people the antibiotics they need so then they don't have leprosy anymore?
Well, first of all, I say because the government doesn't want to spend that money on that. And secondly, of course, leprosy cannot be cured. The only thing that can be done is that the symptoms can be kept.
Well, they're at bay.
They're at bay,
right.
Yeah. And that also now with the cocktail, famous cocktail also, HIV is also the same thing. But for that, you have to have a system, a health system that is willing to do that. But when the government doesn't want to do that, then these people also, most of them are in a very advanced deterioration. So HIV has already developed into AIDS, and the opportunistic diseases have already pneumonias and all these sometimes TBs and so on already have taken hold of the patient, So the only thing that you can offer there is a palliation of the symptoms. So this is what by being lay person, that you are not a priest, you are not a nun, etc., and you have this mobility, capacity to move around, and the government doesn't persecute you because you are not a priest, you don't have authority, you don't have power, and they don't control you. So that is how the association of the Vincentians are spread all over the country. It's amazing. You see Vincentians everywhere.
Are the Vincentians in China, are they Chinese people?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, all of them. you as a foreigner, you are immediately controlled. So, I mean, if me as a priest, when I go, I mean, before I came here 4 years ago, I used to go every year to teach to the seminaries, a couple of seminaries that I used to go to teach there, to the seminarians and to the nuns, And I would arrive, I always enter via Hong Kong. If I would teach in the north, I enter via Hong Kong, so then I did my paperwork of immigration in Hong Kong and in Shenzhen, which is across Hong Kong. I cross the international bridge, and then they tell me, where are you going to reside? I say, well, I'm going to stay here in the Hilton Hotel here. So I checked there in the Hilton Hotel for a couple of days. But then after the first day, I would go to the airport in Vincentian and I will fly to that place, This national flight, so they don't control you, they don't look at your passport, So then I arrived there. By the time they discovered me, I'm already out. Because then when I would go to the seminary, I took very good care that I would not leave the place, Because, I mean, whenever they see these foreigners, and we priests, apparently we have a kind of, the way we behave, or the way we walk, or the way we dress, or whatever, they think, okay, this must be a Catholic priest. Check. Yes.
It sounds like at least in one situation you experienced a collaboration of Vincentians and other groups.
Yes.
Can you, in the Thailand example, do you
In
have
Thailand, yes.
other
In Thailand-
examples where that?
Well, in Thailand there were two Catholic organizations that were very known to have this kind of cooperation with Buddhists. One is the Vincentian group, and the other one is the JOC, the Young Catholic Workers, that association that many, many years ago was very, very common in Europe and in Korea also, So that that organization that was started by a famous Belgian cardinal, And Thai people also who were not Catholics, but they were workers, manual workers, working in construction or working in big companies, production, like assembling cars and and doing all these kind of things, working for 16 hours a day and with no security and so on. They together, they wanted to know this kind of spirituality, So the spirituality of the young Christian workers and the spirituality of the Vincentians, which they found resounded a lot of things in their Buddhist religion, which Buddhism lacks the social interaction. So that's why many people found that dimension very attractive. I mean, religion, Buddhism is a little bit your own personal business. It's you. It speaks about the reduction of your ego, It's about that. So then you are concentrating in your meditation, in your contemplation, in your awareness, in your consciousness, in your, in the here and now, in this moment, be aware of everything that is happening in me, and but it's me, around. But many people have this kind of thirst to transcend the I, and it is there where they found that in the Vincentian movement, because you forget about yourself. That is the diaconia. The church started, the first fight, the very first fight that we had was a jealousy fight. Yeah, you do things for us and you don't do for them. So, aren't we the same? And this kind of thing, and then the apostles had to institute the institution of the diacony, That was even before about circumcision, yes or no, The first thing was about putting food on the table. So about material things. So I says, we speak about equality. We all are children of God, are we? Is that true? You know? So that is. More questions? Hmm? Very interesting. Tell me.
Where do you go next? What will you be leaving?
No, I came here, I retired also. I stopped making money, so I came to Boise to take care of the large Basque community in the northwest here. I'm chaplain of the Basque Catholics here in Boise. So I am chaplain in the Diocese of Boise. I'm not chaplain for the Basques in other dioceses, but nevertheless with the opportunistic permissions and so on, I go to every Basque picnic that I can, and I drive about 30,000 miles in 6 months. So I spend many hours on the roads. So I just today I was supposed to be in Ontario, but I mean the community has not used it. But that is one of the things also that is happening, that the communities are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and they don't have people or energy or so to organize those picnics, which takes that it takes a lot of effort to prepare, and also but to me to prepare the mass in English and in Basque, and this kind of thing. So, but when communities are getting less and less and less, so that's why they decided not to have any picnics. So that's why I was able to come here to be with you. I went there last Saturday though, and I tried to convince them and to go back. But so and so don't want to come. Of course, they were relying on some people coming from Reno. But I mean, can you imagine? From Reno, they have to drive 7-8 hours, to get there. And if people need someone to come to drive 8 hours, and then to do something. 5 minutes. Excellent. So, well, this is also a reality. But anyway, I plan to be here. That's my wish, my desire. And this is my retirement. Scheme. Yes.
What part of Basque country are you from?
I'm from the French side. No, from the Spanish side.
More specific.
Do you know San Sebastian?
Oh, yes.
The most beautiful place in the world.
Yeah.
Do you know San Sebastian? How did you know it?
And when I visited there, I fell in love with that city. It is the most beautiful.
Well. That is. That's why I was saying, I've always been amazed, when reading a little bit the life of St. Vincent de Paul, which I love. Every time I go to Paris, I always wait to the place where his body is kept, there, and I love that kind of smiling face that he has, that kind of, someone full from inside, and that balloon was inside, full of God, of the Spirit of Jesus, So I was amazed to see that he was educated, was in the boarding school with the Franciscans and the Capuchins, but Franciscans after all, and in Dax, which is just in the border where the Basque country stops, being the Basque country, but in that area, not far from Lourdes, Dax, and that area. So it's this sense. Yes.
So in the Treasure Valley, what would you say, because you say poverty is really misery, what would be the misery of the people?
Well, maybe here
where we are.
Well, maybe here is the attention of the immigrants and the people, undocumented people. I mean, it was very. in the statistics that Rafael offered yesterday, it said that the Latinos are 3.9% of the thing. Why is that? My experience, when I was living in Belgium, before I came here, I lived in Belgium. I was professor at the University of Louvain. And I worked with the Latino community there in Brussels and surrounding area, you know. And people came, the Latinos came to church, first of all, because they are very, very Catholics, you know. So we have 5 Spanish-speaking churches in Brussels, you know. In Brussels, every Sunday, Mass was celebrated in 57 languages. All of them approved by the Archbishop. All of them, you know. So there were 5 Hispanics, and many of them, you know, they were people with no documentation. So when they came to the church, you know, they expected something in that regard. That's why today also, when we have the Mass, we celebrate Mass in the cathedral for the Hispanic community. Half or more than the half of them, they don't have documents. And yet they are living here, some of them for 17, 18 years. So I would say, you know, if we don't have misery, but still we have vulnerable people. So that's why we need to look into the experience, contemplation. What is the reality here, you know? The Mormons do it. The Mormons don't bring documents and paperwork for the people they go to them. But many Latinos go to the Mormons, they become Mormons, you know, because we Catholics don't do anything for them. So what could we do for them? Maybe this is one of the reasons they say that they don't join us, because they said, well, because people want to get also something, you know, in return, something. So how can we approach them? And one of the big problems today of the 21st century is displacement of the people. Immigration, it's a big tragedy, you know. Out of 10 billion people that are living in the world today, you know, maybe 2 billion or even more are displaced people. With all the tragedy that has with it. Nobody leaves the country because it's pleasurable. It's because maybe the economy, the way we organize our economy, the way we rich countries are siphoning the resources or whatever, you know, because this is another aspect that we learned yesterday, you know, from the spirituality of Blessed Frederick. The causes of the poverty, studying the causes of the poverty.
So speaking of poverty, have you, with where you've been, where I've been, in the poverty I've seen, have you ever seen a case in this area where someone is as poor as Manila, say?
No.
You know, and this, I know this is going to sound unchristian, and I mean, I work with St. Vincent's and you know, soup kitchen, I get food, and there are hungry people, but I've seen people in other parts of the world that would be happy to be what people here call deprived.
Yeah.
It's just, it's crazy.
I know that. So that's why, you know, you have to look into your own country. When I speak in the parish also, I said, we are not in Burkina Faso. We are not in Manila. Okay?
True.
So we have to look at the here and now of our circumstances here, you know, and if we do that, you know, I'm sure that is going to create that the spiritual solidarity for other people to do what we are doing here in other places, you know. But I mean, in Manila, a child, I mean, I'm supporting the studies of one man from the Philippines. I brought him here, and he's studying at CWY. He's doing an AAS, and I'm paying for his studies, you know. First time we went to a restaurant to eat dinner, you know, I ordered a salad. I like salad in the evenings, you know. So the amount of salad we had, he told me, you know, This salad we eat, my wife, my 2 kids, my mother, my father, 15 people. And here I eat only one. That is. Shall we say Hail Mary again to Mama Mary? Because she is our best support always. I want you always to think of her. Pray to her all the time. All the time. Especially when you drive. And when you get upset. If you are masking Hail Marys, then you don't course. Hail Mary,
Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As there was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.